Hi, I'm Robin Fertel, licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm happy to be here with you today to talk about one of the most important subjects regarding healthy relationships, and that's the one of boundaries. Nowadays, there is frequent talk about boundaries in our culture, and oftentimes people misunderstand the word, thinking that a boundary is something that you do or you say and that you're going to draw like some kind of line in the sand. But today I want to talk to you about something that is more common with boundaries that people or you might not know about. Let me explain an example. Say I have a couple, let's just say a man and a woman. The man is completely at peace, and all of a sudden the woman gets angry with him, and then he also immediately starts getting angry. So what is happening in that dynamic is that her anger transferred over to him, and that happened because he did not have an emotional boundary. Meaning that because his partner got angry and then he reacted or responded by becoming angry as well. So there was an actual transfer of energy or emotion because he didn't have a good emotional boundary. He started to actually feel her anger for her as his. Does that make sense? Same thing it could be with a parent or a child. So, say the child walks in and he or she is sad, and then all of a sudden the parent gets sad too. So there is no emotional boundary between the parent and the child. Same thing is if you're at your workplace, a customer comes in and they're frustrated and they're feeling like they've had a really hard day and they're feeling disappointed and upset. And then you, as the person that's working for the customer, starts feeling upset and disappointed. You're actually feeling disappointed and upset for the customer. It's not even your energy. So there is no boundary of emotions between two people. This is so common I can't even tell you. It's called carried energy. What's happening is that you're actually carrying energy for the person that's feeling the emotion. It is very important that you can identify who you are and you can differentiate from what is actually yours and what is actually theirs. So what would you do in a situation like this? Say your partner got angry, walked in and they had a bad day and they were angry. And then you started feeling the emotion of anger. Once you recognize that it is not your emotion, that it is their emotion, then you can simply say to yourself, okay, they've had a bad day, they're angry. However, this is not my emotion of anger. Just recognizing that it's not your anger in itself will help you discharge the energy that you are getting from the other person. It is very important that you have this kind of boundary so that you're not picking up on everyone's feelings all day long and feeling things for other people that they should be feeling for themselves. When you do constantly pick up on from other people's emotions and make them your own, it's called emotional codependency. Again, it's not that you're not going to have compassion for other people. I want you to have that for sure. But you don't want to be feeling the other person's feelings for them all day and then feeling so drained at the end of the day. So there are two types of boundaries. I found that the most important boundaries to learn to use in order to have healthy relationships are two different boundaries. One is the talking boundary, and the other one is the listening boundary. Now, most people in any relationship, they don't know how to talk or listen. It's a huge problem in our society. You can see it even on the news. And talking and listening are skills that have to be learned. It's a learned behavior. Most of us don't learn it from our parents because our parents haven't been taught how to talk moderately and respectfully or how to listen. So a boundary when you're talking is not to tell someone how you want them to be. That's more of a control issue, right? It's really learning how to talk and express who you are and what your needs are as a request rather than a demand. And that is definitely something I consistently teach my clients how to do. It's learned. Again, a respectful way to do this, which we call the talking boundary, is to be able to express who you are, what you see, what you heard, what you thought, and how you feel, and then make a request for what you might need rather than a demand. So you see, a talking boundary does not mean that you're telling the other person how to behave, because that's more of controlling behavior, and that usually does not work in a relationship, although I see people trying to do it all the time. Another example of this would be, let's say a parent walks in the room, the child's room, and the child's room is a mess. The parent might say, "Your room is an absolute mess, you need to clean it." Now that's one way of saying it. Another way, using the talking boundary, which again is much more respectful, would be, "Hey honey, when I walked in the room and saw your room was a mess, I thought to myself, why didn't he clean his room? So you can tell me more about why you haven't cleaned your room." That way of talking is getting the parent much more information from the child. So in the process, the child is being taught how to be respectful because they're being respected, how to respect others, and they're also having to think about why they didn't do what they were supposed to do, rather than the parent yelling at them and them feeling shamed, and then either cleaning their room because they feel shame, or remember, not cleaning their room because they're rebelling, which I see a lot. So hopefully you're kind of getting a feeling of what these talking boundaries are and how they affect other people. When you're using a talking boundary, you can say almost anything to anyone as long as you remain respectful. That's the key. What most people have trouble with is that they don't want to talk because they feel like they're going to hurt the other person's feelings, or the person might react. But really, if you say something in a very respectful way and you learn how to talk, you can say anything. How the other person reacts is really on them, as long as what you're saying is not critical and it's done in a respectful way and it is not a boundary violation. Okay, now on to the listening boundary. The listening boundary, believe it or not, is a lot more difficult to get. Everybody that I've worked with for the past 20 years, I would say that the listening boundary has been the hardest for most people. Why do you think that is? Okay, I'm going to let you think about it. Okay, it's because when you're listening to somebody, you're usually thinking about what you're going to say back to them. In fact, listening to this video right now, you might be thinking some thoughts in your head back to me. But then, I want you to practice this. How do you listen to what someone else is saying without an emotional reaction, internally or externally? What you want to learn how to do while the other person is speaking is really listen and then think to yourself, this person is giving me a perception. Is this true or not true for me? So, you might not necessarily agree with what that person is saying, but they're still entitled to their perception. So then, and there's a whole coaching on how to listen. If you can learn how to listen respectfully, you might hear things that you can't hear if there's talking already going on in your head. If you're thinking, I want to listen to this person because I'm curious about what they're saying, rather than saying, I want to be right, and coming up with a story and what I'm going to say back, you're going to be able to have much better, more mature relationships, and you'll be amazed at how much people end up telling you. A good example of this would be when someone says, you know, I just need to express to you something. You know, I'm very concerned because it seems to me like you're not getting your work done. You used to be so efficient in your work, and now you're falling behind. I'm really upset because we're not getting these projects done. Okay, let's just say that's an example of what a colleague said to you or a boss. Instead of you immediately thinking, wow, they don't know what I've been going through, or that's not true, you might want to stop for a second and think about it. Well, have I been a little slow at work? And that is true. And then you might respond and say, you know what, you're right. I've been slower at work. Here are some things that would be helpful for you, as well as my boss, to help me so that I can be more efficient. You see, so you'll be able to acknowledge that you're being slow, and here's what your needs would be in order to be more efficient. Then, maybe partly some of what that person is saying is not true. And so then you can say, I see what you're saying here. I have been a little slow, but my perception is a little bit different in the way that I'm not getting my work done as well. So although I'm slow, I feel like I'm still getting my work done. So instead of thinking they're all wrong, or worse, feeling less than, and thinking that everything the other person is saying is true. So you're taking in some of what the other person's saying, but some of what the person is saying is not true. So those are just some examples and some tools on how we can use listening boundaries. They're very, very helpful because if you think about it, the only function of an emotionally mature relationship is learning how to talk and how to listen. It is one of the most important things about a relationship. Now, of course, in a romantic relationship, besides the emotions, there's also physical and sexual boundaries. But in any other relationship or in a romantic relationship, talking and listening are absolutely the most important foundations and fundamentals of that relationship.